In June of 2023, I had the honor of speaking with the great music composer Kurt Heinecke. For this interview, fellow VeggieTales fan Integradario asked to sit in. Also, I invited Gord Animations, who has taken great inspiration from the music of VeggieTales in his own work. Lastly, this podcast is best watched. It's kind of a documentary type of thing. There's a lot of visual stuff going on with all the new editing I've done. And with all that said, please enjoy my interview with Kurt Heinecke, updated for the new year.
If you love your veggies and want more to know, then I've got for you a spectacular show. We be giving the facts in this lyrical rhyme, bringing in guests quite a lot of the time. If you search for your hairbrush and like cheeseburgers too, then I'm happy to say we've got a show for you.
This is Finnegan Rowe on the Ultimate Unofficial VeggieTales podcast. I'm here today co-hosting with Integradario and Gord Animations. When you think about VeggieTales, you might think about the stories, you might think about the characters, the music of VeggieTales, really at the core of the series made it what it is. And today I am so honored to be joined by the person behind the music of VeggieTales, Kurt Heinecke himself. How are you doing?
Woo, doing well. Glad we could finally hook up here. I know we've been trying for a while.
I am beyond thrilled to have you on here. Such an honor to talk to the person who made the hairbrush song happen, you know? Or the music.
Well, I'll jump in right away because I know we'll get to this at some point. Because, yeah, a lot of people say, oh, he wrote all the music for VeggieTales. That's incorrect. And I know you know this. But for your audience, you know, it was really the team of Mike Naraki, a.k.a. Larry the Cucumber, Phil Vischer, a.k.a. Bob the Tomato, Lisa Vischer, a.k.a. Junior Asparagus, that came up with most of those nuggets that began as, oh, that's stuck in my head. And then I come on and help them complete that song, finish parts, write parts, arrange it, produce it. So yeah, we're considered all co-writing those. But you know, something like, oh, where's my hairbrush? I'm not crazy enough to come up with that concept. That's Mike Naraki. Lyrically, I don't do the lyrics. People like Mike and Phil do lyrics, and they're astounding at it. And they have just wonderful senses of, even though neither of them is a really, really accomplished musician, though Phil actually is a decent musician. They just have wonderful sense of creativity. And so I love to take their, you know, something like hairbrush, and I'm sorry, I'm already diving deep here.
No,
something like hairbrush. You know, Mike had the concept of that hook that is stuck in your head. Oh, where is my hairbrush? Oh, where is my hairbrush? Da, 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 is my hairbrush? That's what Mike had, and that's the gift of Mike and Phil, is they come up with these little nuggets that are simple enough that they just stick with you. But then I had to take that nugget and create the rest of the song around it. So, you know, the way the song builds, the way it feels like a little opera, the way that Aware is sung happy, sad, slow, fast, building all that together in that particular song is where I came in. And every song is different. You know, Cheeseburger is one of my favorites. I had to rewrite some of Mike's stuff because he was using a melody from a Spanish soap opera because his wife is Colombian, and he didn't realize where he'd picked it up from. So the verse to the Cheeseburger used to be the theme song to a Spanish soap opera, and his wife said, "Mike, you can't use that. That's already taken." So then I rewrote that and gave him a new verse for that. So, anyways, but it's always a collaboration like that. I do write all the score, 95% of the score. You know, so any of the background music that you hear is my doing also. So in a nutshell, that's what happens here at VeggieTales headquarters.
I have a question. Well, I remember like on the Jonah like DVD, I remember like looking up the score, like the score bonus feature. And I remember there was a thing where it was Phil specifically like humming the score to a scene. Yep. I was wondering like how that worked, or like when that started and when he started doing that specifically.
It was more, I mean, he's got a very intuitive sense of storytelling. And so we call guys like that hummers. He's not the first director that has hummed musical ideas to the composer. And so that's exactly what he was doing on that first movie, Jonah, at times. And he said, oh, I've got this idea. What if we did this? Mm-hmm. And there would be scenes where literally I'd watch the scene and he'd hum through it. And that would give me the groundwork of what I should do, which is very related to, actually, most movies use what's called a temp score. If there's an action movie, somebody at some point before the movie is made has dropped in some music from Star Wars or Pirates of the Caribbean or you name it, and it gives this energy to a scene. So, oh, that's the tempo of this fight scene or this chase scene. That helps our animators or our editors with a tempo and a feel. Then the composer hears that, goes, oh, okay, I have to write something that is completely different than that, but matches the energy, maybe matches the orchestra flavor. That a big orchestra? Is it a bluegrass ensemble? That helps tell us what we should do with that. So in the same way, Phil would do that. Mike Mike doesn't do that, but we sit down and we do a spotting session where we go through the show. We see, okay, here's action. What do you want there? And we make a whole list of the things. And then there might be temp score in there occasionally to say, okay, here's the style of what we want. Or sometimes, as I've written more music for shows, they'll put some of my own music in there, say, here's what we've used in the past. So it's got the same palette. It's related to what I would write. And then I go in and, again, replace that with new music.
Well, something I think is absolutely genius that I really just picked up on recently. Like, I think I kind of subconsciously realized it, but didn't like fully comprehend it. I was rewatching some scenes from Madame Blueberry yesterday, and the way you rework in the songs, you know, like in the big scene where they're all in their shopping carts, and you hear "I'm so blue hoo hoo, blue hoo hoo."
I love doing that. You know, I've got a music degree. I've got a classical music background. I say this quite often. I never thought of myself as writing kids music. I'm writing legit music that just take any of the silly songs. Take Barbara Manatee, Endangered Love. Barbara Manatee, you are the one for me. That is not a kid's song. That is an actual true tango. I researched that with Mike, what makes a true tango. I'm writing a legitimate song that just happens to have a crazy cucumber singing over it. But the humor there is that Larry takes himself seriously, so my music is serious, which makes his humor even more humorous. So I don't need to be in my music going, hey, this is silly, get it? I'm like, no, I'm writing a Hairbrush song. That's, if you took away the lyrics, that is a mini operetta played on the piano. It's not a children's song. And so it's fun for me to challenge myself to always put in depth there for myself and for other musicians, for parents, so parents aren't driven crazy. But that's a classic standard film scoring technique is, okay, let's take these themes, these motifs, and let's drop them back into the show so that subconsciously, oh, that's related. Oh, I didn't notice that before. In any of our Christmas shows, you know, I've probably dropped in, 20 different Christmas carols in the score there. There might just be 5 notes of something that just whizzes by, but somebody goes, oh my gosh, he dropped in, you name it there. So that's a fun little thing that I do. The who I consider the most the world's best composer, J.S. Bach. In German, B-A-C-H is actually, and I'm going to get this wrong, B-A-C-H is a B flat or something like that. So that, B-A-C, B flat, those 4 notes, he would hide in his music. So he would write his name in his music for somebody to discover later. And I just love that idea. It wasn't enough for him to write the world's best music. He was hiding Easter eggs in it before we knew what Easter eggs were.
So are you hiding K notes and U notes and R notes and T notes in your music?
That's a good idea. Yes. If there was musical letters that fit that, none of them fit that, unfortunately. I'll drop in references. What was it? Oh, The Pirates Who Don't Do Anything. The big climactic ending melody is a hymn that I don't remember offhand, but it's a hymn about the sea, and we're on the ocean discovering this king. And I doubt that even people that go to church regularly would recognize the hymn because it's a more obscure hymn, but somebody's going to pick up on it and go, whoa, that was genius. That there's a depth there. And I just love to, add in those layers if I can. And it just keeps it interesting for me.
You touched on it a little bit, but like something that I have always loved about the show's music and something I definitely absorbed into the stuff that I do in my artwork is like that balance between like taking a joke incredibly seriously and just like still letting the comedy flow through on that. One of my favorite moments of score, like literally of all time, is like the first like really big action scene in Larry Boy and the Fifth from Outer Space, because it's like the music really like has that sort of tension in there, but the instrumentation like also really elevates a lot of the comedy in that scene.
Okay.
I was wondering like whether there was like any time where you had any kind of trouble with that, because all of it seems so flawless, honestly.
Thanks. I mean, trouble. Yeah. There's John Williams, probably the world's most famous film composer, has even said this. Every time he starts a project, he's looking at a blank piece of paper, and it's scary because, like, oh, I have to fill up this page with 60 minutes of music or whatever it might be. And so often it's more work than, oh, this is so fun. I get to go and write for a tomato and a cucumber today. At the same time, it's like, no, I have to start from somewhere and start from a blank slate and get to this full score that tells this story with this visuals. And I think that's part of the beauty of storytelling through film and video is there are so many people involved, so many different layers in so many different ways. Because in a simple little VeggieTales video, you've got a script, then storyboards, then animation, then dialogue, then music, then sound effects. And all of this has to tie together seamlessly because all of us have grown up all of our lives watching movies. So we inherently sense if something is off or wrong. So we kind of have this paradigm that we're following. And if you veer off course too far, it becomes distracting. But what the beauty of what Mike and Phil created was they weren't afraid to just try something that hadn't been done before. I mean, when they were pitching VeggieTales 30 years ago, nobody was interested. All the big names and, Christian entertainment and music. I mean, limbless, nude vegetables telling Bible stories. Yeah, right. It just doesn't sound like success. And they just said, we're going to write for what makes us laugh. And that's why you have that layer. Mike has said, a successful silly song is one that plays on two levels. It's silly for the child, but there's an adult angst in there also. SUV, the SUV song. It's basically us poking fun at ourselves, saying, why do you need an SUV that's got 4-wheel drive when you're just going to the grocery store to get a loaf of bread? It's a status symbol. And, same thing with the gated community. I mean, if that's not a statement on today's society, what is? And yet it's a goofy little song about kicking a ball over a fence and not being able to get it because the people inside the gated community are too busy talking about their wonderful gated community to retrieve your ball.
Can I get my ball? I kicked it into the tree. And my ball bounced up, and my ball dropped in. To the gated commune.
What a lovely bunch we are.
To the gated commune.
What a happy bunch we are.
I'm glad you mentioned gated community because I think it was that one and Pizza Angel. Were you saying backup vocals, right?
Or was that backup vocal on Pizza Angel? Gated community, the cool thing there is we had Matthew West sing there's a trio. There's Larry, and then I think it's a trio of guys in the gated community. And that's Matthew West, one of today's top Christian singer-songwriters. Matthew West sang, I think, a second part, and then Matthew Ward sang the third part. And Matthew Ward a lot of your listeners won't know, but he was one of the trio of the second chapter of Acts, which was one of the founding Christian, contemporary Christian, rock groups from 50 years ago now. Their most famous song was the Easter song. Hear the bells ringing, they're singing. And we bumped into each other decades ago and have become friends ever since. And he's done a couple projects with us, just because we're mutual fans. I grew up listening to and seeing Matthew Ward in concert with Second Chapter, and so that's just one of those pinch me moments for me. I get to work with one of my people that I really admire. So
cool.
Yeah, so that's Matthew Ward and Matthew West, the Matthews, singing the parts to Gated Community.
Very nice. And not to put you on the spot, but do you think you could give us a little bit of that, ba-boom, boom, boom from Pizza Angel?
Ooh, da, 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 da. Boom, 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 boom. I'm just making up parts. I'm guessing that's how it goes.
That was
I don't
basically
It's
it.
a nice doo-wop bass.
Ma 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 do ma 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 ma. Heaven for me ma 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 do ma 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 ma. Chicago style ma 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 do ma ma. Then my heart skipped, boom, heard the door.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's exactly, so many times we pick a genre or style of music and then go with it. And actually that was a Tim Hodge piece. Tim Hodge directed that one. That was his concept. He's one of our animators and a former Disney guy, great guy. But there's an example of the yodeling veterinarian of the Alps. Mike came to me and said, "Hey, I've got this idea of the storytelling through this vocal group, this guy's trio." And he had a specific trio in mind. It wasn't the Mitch Miller Singers, but it was somebody like that. There was a folk group in like the 60s at their guitars on stage. But then it zips into a yodeling polka. Well, that's the fun of somebody like Mike saying, "Hey, what if we did this and this?" And I go, "Well, it's, as far as I know, it's never been done before. We've never combined these two genres. So that's the fun of it." And that's where the musical arranging comes in and just crafting this little gift and figuring out how that's going to work. And that happens over and over. Belly Button is one of my favorite silly songs. And that was, we just said, okay, we're going to spoof boy bands. So I got at the time, our babysitter for our kids, I borrowed her CD collection of all the boy bands she listened to. So I studied boy bands. What kind of harmonies, what sort of writing do the vocals do, what sort of instrumentation, what synthesizers and drum machines and whatever, and the style of the song and just all of those things, so that I can write a legit boy band song that just happens to have vegetables singing about no belly buttons. So there's the humor in that.
I recently re-listened to the Boys in the Sink album that you guys put out
Oh, okay.
2006. Yeah, and
Yep.
It was it's so amazing how well it sounds like a boy band.
That's so good.
Just how close it gets there.
It's that's cool. That's fun. That's one of the things that I get to do behind the scenes. Like, let's take Belly Button. That's some complex 4-part harmonies with guys. Well, I'm teaching that to, I've got all the parts figured out and written out, and I hand the sheet music to Mike and Phil, who don't read sheet music. So I'm having to, teach them the parts. Da 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 da. Okay, that was close. Let's get it again. And then there's always a balance, and this isn't just with Mike and Phil. This is anytime you're working in a studio. There's that balance of, okay, how hard do I push for perfection versus, okay, this has the spirit of it, and maybe one note's not right, but do I keep pushing them until I just beat them into the ground, or do we say, okay, we can work with that, let's move on? There's always a balancing act there. It's funny, a little behind the scenes story. Mike used to, 20 years ago, the first melody that he'd hear, it would get stuck in his head, or what he thought he heard, and I'd be like, oh no, there's like 2 notes that he's not hitting, but it's almost impossible to pull him away from what he's hearing already in his head. And so that was a challenge. Okay, how do I do this? How do I get him to sing the other note without making it sound like, no, you can't sing that note, come on? And finding that balance in the studio. I will say, he's, over the years, he's gotten so much better. It's funny, his daughter used to take piano lessons, and so I think he spent a lot more time just around the piano and just hearing things. And I mean, he nails it now. He's great.
For sure. And you're working on speaking of Mike, Dead Sea Scrolls, right? You have some involvement with that?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so if the audience doesn't know about it, which is understandable because it hasn't been released yet, but Mike has a series of books out called the Dead Sea Squirrels. I asked him about that. He came up with that title first because he thought it was such a wonderful play on words. Instead of the Dead Sea Scrolls, he came up with Dead Sea Squirrels. And then he started writing the stories based on that concept. And it's like, okay, well, what does that mean? What would happen with them? So it's it's classic Mike Naraki. So if, in fact, I am literally writing on it right now. There's a screenshot.
Oh,
which
how cool is that?
I can't show you anymore because that was probably just illegal what I just did. But I'm literally writing that right now. But it's hilarious because it's the classic humor of VeggieTales. In fact, we had somebody, a mover and shaker, meaning somebody in the industry, watched one of the episodes the other day and literally told Mike, "This is better than VeggieTales." And he's like,
Really?
"I'll take it." And I've had I've got some assistants that work with me that they're just out of college age, and they've been helping. So they've been watching the show, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, this is hilarious." Well, once again, it's a kids book, kids stories for, let's just say, 9-year-olds. It's that range. And yet, and my son, who's out of college and just starting his first job, he sat in on some of the episodes, and just to hear college age kids laughing really loudly at things, it's like, yep, it's got the same sensibilities as VeggieTales. Completely different story, completely different everything. But to have Mike writing again, and then it's being co-produced by Steve Taylor, who was a mover and shaker in the Christian music industry 40 years ago. And he actually, since then, he's done a ton of stuff. He's written a lot of the big hits of the Newsboys. But again, he's one of those, if you know Steve Taylor, he's a little bit out in left field. He's crazy and wild and fun. And so to be working with those two on this series. So what's happening is we are working on an animated series, and we are finishing the first season of 13 episodes before we release it. So you won't see anything until around the end of this year or so. But, hopefully there's a buzz building as we've given sneak previews to people. And it's just fun to be in the room and hear just really good laughter. And again, Mike and I are working together along with Steve. We all three write. There's always at least one song in each episode that are really fun. Steve writes some incredible stuff. He and Mike will write a tune, then Mike and I will write a tune. And so you just have this great variety of songs. And then we also put in spoof songs in the background. There's, again, like VeggieTales, they might flick on the radio while they're vacuuming, and on the radio is a song that you have to listen and go, "Oh my gosh, that is." And then there's going to be a joke there that, we're spoofing 80s, not boy bands, but there's one that I absolutely spoof a certain famous singer from the 80s, and I won't say who. And I got a famous singer to spoof them. So it's just the layers again. It's fun for me because if somebody catches it, great. If they don't, they'll still enjoy the story.
We'll catch next time around.
Exactly. I can tell you in a year.
Yeah, I can't wait. I can't even wait.
The only thing left to bring the Dead Sea squirrels to life is you. And $1.2 million.
We were saying before the interview, people call you the VeggieTales guy, but you're not just the VeggieTales guy. You've done, which, I'm saying on the VeggieTales podcast, but that's just how I connected with, your music to begin with. But like, it goes so far beyond that. You were mentioning Disneyland in a past interview where you had done a few little medleys for some of the rides or something.
Okay, so real quickly, just so people might not be aware, but about 2 years ago, we did 26 new VeggieTales episodes they're going to be on TBN now. Now, before that, there was a Netflix series, Veggies in the House. Some weren't crazy about it because, they updated the character style. They updated the storytelling. Some hardcore fans, which I'm sure you have, are going like, boo. Well, somebody came along and said, we want to do the classic Veggies. And so that's what they did with TBN. And they got the band back together. They got Mike and Phil and myself. Mike and Phil are writing scripts. They co-wrote the songs with me. So it has that classic Veggie feel. It takes place in a different setting. It's more Bob has acquired a theater that he has to put on a show each week. So it's a little bit of a Muppet show influence there. But all of that to say, if you've gone through all your old Veggies, look up the new TBN Veggies, because you might find some nuggets in there. You go, whoa, that is funny, because it's written by Mike and Phil and Kurt. We do a silly song or some sort of song every show. So that's that. Then I spent 11 years writing 5 seasons for Superbook, CBN's Superbook series, which is a very in-depth Bible storytelling series, five seasons. So, we're up into the 60-something episodes of that. That's completely different than VeggieTales, but it's neat because I hear from so many families, oh yeah, our kids, we've got them watching Superbook because it's just really solid storytelling of all the classic Bible stories, but in a new, fresh way, because it's got some contemporary characters. It's got a robot. It's got time travel, Slugs and Bugs, Randall Good Games series. Did some fun music on that. And I'll circle back around to Disney. Sorry. Yes, on the side, I've got a good friend who we go to church together, and he's been one of the main writers for a lot of the Disney park parades, shows that appear on the castle, entertainment, and that sort of stuff. So there's been over a dozen projects where he'll say, hey, Kurt, I need some Irish whistles, and I don't know if this will come out because I know we're on Zoom. But, I've got a whole wall full of Irish whistles and Native American flutes and stuff. And he'll have me, hey, we need something that sounds organic. I do a lot of pirate stuff or under the sea stuff that it's played on an Irish whistle, but I make it sound like something different. And so there's been a bunch of projects, parades that I've played Irish whistles. I do some trumpet and trombone and some other stuff on some of it. And so, yeah, there's a lot of things that I've layered on in the parks. That you go to the parks, there's a big float or a big parade that had Merida on it with the Irish and the Scottish music, and I do a bunch of Irish whistle on that sounds like Irish whistle. So yeah, that was one of the highlights for me, was to be able to be in Shanghai. I was on a musical tour with my sons who were touring in a group. We were at Shanghai Disney, and I heard my music being played on the big castle in Shanghai Disney, and that was mind blowing. So yeah, those sorts of things I get to do occasionally.
More people need to know about that. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, no, it's hard to say, oh, if you go here and hear this, that's me. It just depends on if it's time. Yeah, exactly. Because like they just reintroduced the parade that I was in. I literally just checked it because somebody texted yesterday, hey, we're at the Disney parks in Florida. Can we hear Kurt's music anywhere? And I looked it up. It's like, oh, they've dropped the Merida float because they've got a new princess. So I'm not in that parade anymore, So I couldn't find anything at the moment, but I am in Hong Kong right now. And So, and Disneyland, I've got some stuff in there. So I have been to the parks quite a few times, and with my kids, like, okay, listen, that was me. And it's, I mean, obviously it's awesome to be able to do that, because I've, have spent a lot of times in those parks with my kids as they were young and that sort of thing. And then, yeah, as you were moving along the timeline, recently, we were just saying I'm involved in Dead Sea Squirrels. But then, yeah, the big one that people are talking about right now is Wingfeather Saga, Andrew Peterson's book series, fantasy with a strong moral compass to it. The books have become very popular, and so then over the last couple of years, they did a huge Kickstarter program and began a series, and now it's been picked up by Angel, the same group that does The Chosen. So we are in our second season now. I'm the director of music on that, but it was a really interesting way of doing that, because Andrew Peterson is an impeccable songwriter, singer, performer. He's got some friends, the Arcadian Wild, that tour with him. It's this folk Americana bluegrass band that are incredible songwriters and musicians. And he really wanted a lot of the music to have that feel to it. So they came on board. And then Ben Shive, who is Andrew's producer / co-writer, fantastic, he came on board. So together, that's Andrew, Arcadian Wild, Ben, myself. There's really 6 of us going, okay, we need a theme for this. You, Arcadian Wild, that needs a folk idea, you go for it. And this needs this bigger bombastic orchestral thing. Kurt, you write that. And some of it's just, hey, all of you write some themes, and we'll see where they stick. Because it's really cool in the sense that Andrew's probably, in 2 words to describe the music, he wants it to be happy, sad. It's like, okay, there's some happiness to it, but there's this underlying depth and sadness, because a lot of hard things have happened to this family. So if all of us are writing happy, sad music, we're all focused in the same direction, but we're putting our own take on it. So that's the beauty of that music in Wingfeather, is you're just hearing this real rich tapestry of music. And we're right in the middle of season 2 now. I'll probably be getting a call this week from the guys saying, okay, here's the stuff that worked that you wrote. Now we need updates for this, and that sort of thing. So yeah, keep your eyes out for Wingfeather. I think it's a deep story. It takes a little bit to get into, but it's amazing that, it's like Tolkien, C.S. Lewis, Lord of the Rings, all of those. Like, no, there's depth to this. There's character development. There's good and evil. And in Wingfeather, there's a strong family that's at the core of it, and their story, and you really get to know them and how they deal with a lot of things happening in this world. It's kind of scary that a lot of them are happening in today's world here, and you go, oh wow, that feels more familiar than I want it to feel. And so it raises a lot of issues and makes people think about things.
Well, I'm looking forward to watching that. I know it's been out for a little bit now. I've been meaning to check
it's
it
on
out.
it's on the Angel app. It's also on YouTube. So you can find it out there, and it's they have a unique way of funding it, so you can watch it for free. Go find the Angel app, and you can watch the whole first season for free. I will say that I'm very picky about, like, I'm looking at my computer here, and when I open up a session, I'm literally looking at it right now. It pulls up 370 channels of orchestral and acoustic instruments from my sound library. So, so I've got, I'm going through them right now. 115 different string patches, from strings and big string sections and solo string sections and string effects and libraries and stuff. And I'm very picky because of my orchestral and acoustic background. That's what I should say. I pay attention to how sound sounds, and does it sound realistic? So I want to write to satisfy myself, not just the 4-year-old.
Exactly.
I want to be able to live with it as best as I can 20 years from now. Sometimes budget and time, yeah, there's some constraints, but I want to put my best foot forward. But then what else I do is I love to pick up instruments and add something acoustically to it. So my studio just has shelves and walls of instruments everywhere. I mean, I was just doing some writing yesterday, so I've got these things that I was working on today, and I've got this little.
Is that the biscuit of Desmerindabo instrument?
It might be. Yeah, it probably is.
Oh wow, how cool is that?
Yeah. That's probably the only other time I've used it.
The biscuit of Zazamarandabo, it lies atop a mound of snow, high in the hills where the cold winds blow. It's the biscuit of Zazamarandabo.
So yeah, I mean, a lot of these things on the walls, it's like there's stuff that I haven't used yet.
Did I spot a pea puppet?
Oh yeah, that up. Where is he?
Is that from the live show?
That is from the original live show.
How cool is that?
Michael Curry did our we've had several touring live shows, but the very first one was designed by Michael Curry, who was a fan of VeggieTales, and he did the Lion King live stage show. So I mean, he is the tops of the top, Tony Award winning. And so that was the only show that literally the characters didn't have arms and legs, or I don't remember. Was that the one? I mean, it was like, this is real, like veggies. So yeah, somehow one of the directors had some of the peas laying around, and he's like, "Here, do you want one?" And I'm like, "Yes." So yeah, it's an absolute, and it's from the walls. Was that from the Walls of Jericho?
That's beautiful.
I went to that show. I was 4.
Okay, so a little off topic. Do you have? That's a show that the VeggieTales fandom has been trying to find for a long time. There's no recorded video of it. Do you know if that was recorded and if that's saved anywhere accessible?
I don't. I mean, I remember years ago seeing some snippets, but I have no idea. Unfortunately, Big Idea went through a bankruptcy and then got bought out and and it's scary to think there were whole archives of just things that I have no idea where so much of that is. Unfortunately, the good thing is I've got some boxes of stuff that I've saved from way back when. I haven't had time. I haven't framed it, but I've got the original lyrics that Mike handed me to the Hairbrush song.
Oh, the razor.
And yeah. And I thought, and I've got some notes on that, and the original little disc that I had done the sequence. I thought, I need to frame that and have it on my wall somewhere, because nobody else in the world has that.
It's a history. We're gonna put it in the Smithsonian.
Exactly.
See, I feel like
we should put it in the Museum of the Bible when they come out with a VeggieTales episode. I mean, a VeggieTales wing special exhibit.
Yeah.
Well, I can say that's the tuba that I played the theme song on.
Oh wow!
Technically, that's not the original theme song. We've done 2 theme songs. I mean, we redid the theme song. I'm just going to say 20 years ago. So probably what everybody thinks is the theme song is not the original theme song. We just tightened it up and shortened it a little bit, but it's basically the same thing. But yeah, this tuba plays. Oh, and here's another relic. When we went through the bankruptcy, I basically bought a bunch of my studio from the studio. I mean, the stuff that I had at Big Idea was Big Ideas, but then as I moved home and continued writing for VeggieTales, even as a freelancer, so there was a bankruptcy, there was a layoff. I got laid off, but then right away I was right back writing VeggieTales as a freelancer for many years after that. But this is the original mic. This is the first microphone that Mike and Phil bought. So literally everything from the first dozen episodes, every voice was recorded on this microphone.
How cool
and it's still my main microphone. So
oh my gosh.
So there's little nuggets like that I know that some of your fans will appreciate. I'm just looking around to see if there's anything else.
That's so cool. Now, while we're on the topic of like relics and lost media, there's a whole scrapped silly song from 2012, Tornado Hunters. I assume you worked on the music for that. Do you know what the
Yeah,
melody
yeah.
for that was?
You know, I don't remember. I mean, yes, there was exactly. It was fully in production, and then I think there was a tornado that was in the news that was unfortunate. We just said this is not the time to release this silly song, and so yeah, we canned it. It's never seen the light of day.
It was, yeah.
I have no recollection of what it was like unless I hear it again.
Yeah, that's fine. I want to see that so bad because it's like on the DVD menu, there's a glitch where it's Robin Good, right? And so you go, they have the little scene selections with the video playing.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have Tornado Hunters playing.
Oh, it didn't
where
get
bubble wrap is
replaced.
supposed to. Yep.
Yeah.
I will say one, if you ever meet Mike in person, he's got one silly song simmering that it's going on a Christian cruise. And it's just hilarious. It's typical Mike because he parodies what a Christian cruise would be like. And I've actually been on Christian cruises because I've photographed them. And it's just so funny. He's firmly tongue in cheek. And it's like that's why it's never seen the light of day, because there's probably some things that hit too close to home. But have him sing a line or two to you, it's hilarious. I probably shouldn't have mentioned that now.
Well, if you think of anything after this you need me to cut, let me know. I'll happily do it.
No. I'm sure there's other nuggets out there floating around that give you a little insight into the background of stuff.
A little over a year after this interview, I found Tornado Hunters and uploaded it to this channel. So I thought I'd give a little update on that.
Nicholas, do you have any questions?
Maybe.
The
one question was, I mean, Mike has mentioned like if he were some sort of vegetable, and then I think there was Phil, he was a scallion, but I wanted to know, Kurt, if you were made into a VeggieTales character, what vegetable would you be?
I don't know that I've ever been asked that question, so I don't know what the answer would be. The question I usually get asked is, "Oh, were you a VeggieTales character?" And I was like, I sing backup on a lot of stuff. I'm not a lead character, though I am credited in the first Christmas CD, the first Dove Award winning Christmas CD, that I am sheep number 3.
Okay.
On While By My Sheep. Or we go, While By My Sheep, I watch it night. Ba, 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 ba. So
you would be a sheep. That's your vegetable.
I'm a sheep.
There you
Yeah,
go.
I guess so. I'm an animated character. I am sheep number 3.
There you go.
Well, sheep number 3 personally was one of my favorite characters. It really hit.
Yes. Yeah. I don't want to be way up there at the top. Just following along.
There you
Well,
go.
sheep number 3 is always top in my book.
That's the best question you got?
Well,
Yeah, Dario, come on.
You don't
Dario,
have
come
anything
on.
better than that?
I was gonna ask, something that I always find fascinating about VeggieTales, especially a lot of the early days, is that how you guys were just a big group of outsiders of the industry and just kind of built this thing from the top. And you can tell from the videos how all of your artistic styles were developing and that kind of thing. And I was just wondering what that was like, just starting basically from nothing and just developing from there.
There are some very fond memories of just what that was like. I mean, I was working at a church full time as the director of music. And that was, so the church I was at, it was a very contemporary, cutting edge church in downtown Chicago in Lincoln Park. And a lot of creatives were going there, and Mike and Phil and Lisa were attending. And I was working with, the voice of Junior Asparagus, Lisa has a beautiful classically trained voice, and she was a soloist I would work with all the time. So to hear the little squeaky junior voice come out of her is pretty amazing. So, they had this vision for, Phil was in computer animation, Mike was in video editing, but they had met in college and terrorized Baptist churches with a puppet ministry that they would tour the Midwest with. And one of the things I thought that was just astonishing about Mike and Phil before I knew them, just for the fun of it in college, they would give themselves a weekend to write and direct and film a short music video. And it could be about anything. And I've seen some of those, and it's just sheer genius. And it just says, okay, that's why we came up with VeggieTales. Another thing I've seen them do is at little party nights, art nights, Mike and Phil will both juggle and Phil will recite Dr. Seuss while Mike recites The Raven, you know, a classical poem. So it's just this sort of art piece. Okay. So this is the minds of Mike and Phil, Bob and Larry that you get VeggieTales from. So I came into that. They didn't, you know, they said, hey, we're wanting to do this, try this creative video for kids. We don't have a budget. We don't have any money, so we can't go to Nashville and get, you know, a big name. But they had seen me doing the music at the church for years. Every offertory, I would sometimes come up with something. I did something real creative. Once I sampled my daughter, who was less than a year old at the time. I sampled, this is 35 plus years ago when sampling was just pretty new. Off of her videotapes of her laughing and crying and coughing, I sampled little baby noises. And then I wrote a version of Jesus Loves Me using those samples so that you get this sort of thing. And then Jesus Loves Me comes in. And that was the offertory for that Sunday. So even in the church, I had freedom to do some very creative things. So Mike and Phil were hearing that and going, oh, well, what if we ask Kurt to help with the music? And, you know, they asked me, and I was tickled to be able to offer, just because I was wanting to stretch my wings a little bit, and none of us had any idea what would become of it. And so just they have the opportunity to do some creative things with them was very fun for me. So that's how I got started on it. And yeah, and it was, you know, late nights, and I had a keyboard that had a sequencer in it, and then like a couple outboard modules and a sampler, and I'd write from my home bedroom, and then I put it on cassette for them to hear. And then, I mean, I didn't even have a computer yet. So that first episode, Where's God When I'm Scared, I was using a stopwatch to figure out, okay, the little scary organ music, because it's so rudimentary back then. There's no score virtually. The songs were really well done. I don't take credit for that. A lot of those were Phil's on that first one, just really well written. And so I'm using a stopwatch and writing in my bedroom. And then I'd have to take my gear over to their little studio and plug it in to download all the music, because we didn't have any digital way of recording it back then. So all of these very simplistic, rudimentary ways of doing it, you know, I look back and it's kind of like chuckling. You know, I wasn't even watching video at that time, but the very first time I started scoring to video, which was probably show 6 or so, Madame Blueberry. It was on VHS tape. We'd put it was called striping a SMPTE time code to one channel of the VHS tape, and then have the picture on the other. And I had one of those little transistor TVs with a little like 3-inch screen sitting on my computer, my keyboard. And then I'd hit the tape deck to hit play and start playing. It would, you know, take 2 or 3 seconds for the computer to lock up to the SMPTE time code. And then I was running with the film and then writing to that. So all these different things that, you know, I've kind of grown up through the whole analog to digital age. And yeah, just, you know, what are some other stories? I remember that we had no idea, because we were in Chicago. Is anybody hearing this? Is anybody paying attention? What's the word out there? And I subscribed to CCM magazine, Contemporary Christian Music magazine. And there was an article, an interview with Out of the Gray, which was one of the favorite top groups back then, as a duo, married couple, really fresh, innovative music. So all of us musicians really respected them. And they were being interviewed by CCM magazine, and I'm reading it in a magazine. I don't know if you kids know what that is. Reading the magazine, the interviewer asks, so are you listening to any music these days? And the answer is, well, no, we haven't really been listening to anything these days. And then he chimes in, unless you consider VeggieTales, these videos that we've been watching with our kids, we love the music. And my jaw just dropped, because first of all, I'm a huge fan of Out of the Gray, and I'm thinking, Out of the Gray has heard my music. That was astounding at that moment. And somebody outside of our circle is listening to this. and these are top-notch artists in Nashville. So it was just mind-blowing to think, wow, we're being heard by people that I respect. So there's all sorts of stories like that, of just those early days of, I mean, part of me gets nostalgic and wishes, oh, I wish I could, not that I could go back to that, but there, I mean, the story of Big Idea is an up and down story. Phil wrote a really good book about that, Me, Myself, and Bob, that goes into the depths of how could VeggieTales go bankrupt? Well, there was 4 or 5 different things going on at the same time, and they all just took the wrong fork in the road, and whatever. Read the book. But it's but I know you were wondering, is there anything that we've been doing lately? Well, like I said, we did some new VeggieTales about 2 years ago, which was great to do. It was a ton of fun I didn't take it for granted. It's like, wow, I didn't think I'd get to do this again. I'm writing with Mike and Phil again, VeggieTales music. This is great. And now Mike and I have been in touch since he lives just minutes from me down here in the Nashville area. Over the years, we've always been in touch with things, and now to get to do Dead Sea Squirrels with him has been just great, because it's just so fun to work with him again. And he is he's not just a cucumber, he's just such a great guy. And then I've been in touch with Phil, and he's got some ideas brewing, and we've talked about those, and I'm very excited about the potential of those. And so, yeah, I've always had a huge respect for these guys and their creativity, and just what the impact that they've made in Christian childhoods over the past decades.
I just wanted to say this really quickly. VeggieTales has been a really big foundational thing for me artistically, but you're the main reason why I get into arranging, and basically one of the only reasons why I have an accordion in my room right now.
You have an accordion?
Yes.
Yay!
Look at all those beauties.
I've got my family sitting right here. And I
You
just
made
picked
me-
this up. This isn't an accordion, but I just picked this up in an antique store. Look at it's a little electric organ. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
So
You've made me
anyways.
completely fall in love with polka music. Just
Yes.
entirely.
Well, I'm proud to be able to introduce the next generation to polka music. I've had more than one, I've spoken at colleges, and I've had more than one geeky tuba player say, I'm playing tuba because of Larry. And and I go, well, that's pretty cool. I think, I apologize first.
I mean, I'd still listen to VeggieTales music. Unironically, I think Dario, you'd agree with me there, right? Just the music
all
has
the
a
time.
certain bass.
I think I got a problem.
Well, yeah, that render in the background. You made that, right?
Oh yeah,
Dario
I
makes
specially
VeggieTales fan animations and stuff, which I think is pretty
very
cool.
nice. Yeah, we're coming up on our 30th anniversary. Right?
Yeah,
it's Christmas,
December,
crazy. Which thanks for reminding me, because it's like, man, somewhere out there, is anybody going to acknowledge that? It just, Veggie just lies under the surface of everybody not everybody, but so many people I bump into. Yeah, there's not something going on literally at this moment that you can go out and buy a new VeggieTales, but it's just under the surface of so many people I run into. And it's fun because I do a lot of side jobs. I'm a professional photographer, and I mean, one story, I've been photographing for a studio for over a year and a half, and it's most of it is Christian background, but I don't say what my background is, because it's like, as a photographer, that's not my job. You didn't hire me because I write music. You hired me as a photographer. And so I don't mention it purposely, so that I just let other people figure it out if they choose to. And I had somebody pull me aside about a month ago and go, okay, so my coworker called me and said, have you heard about Kurt Heinecke? And she was like, no, what happened? Did he get arrested? No, he did the music for VeggieTales. She was like, no way. And so then, of course, they have that conversation with me the next time they see me. They're like, Kurt, get over here. You didn't tell me. I'm like, tell you what? Or, somebody will say, is it true? Did I hear that you did? I said, no, I don't know where you heard that from. And I'll just go along with it for a little while. Oh, there's one more funny story. I actually, ironically, or maybe it's the most non-ironic thing you can think of. I actually play in a German band now, a polka band,
Oh,
a
that's
4-piece German band.
Wow.
And I play tuba and trumpet and trombone and drums, and we've got a clarinet player and a banjo player and an accordion player. And
The oompa.
and we had I'll remember it, about a year ago, somebody, and it was a college age woman, she just yells out, "Play VeggieTales," and they have no idea who I am. They're like,
Oh, that's funny.
You don't know that
wow.
I actually played the tuba part on VeggieTales.
Oh,
And so
that's
now
insane.
we've actually put the VeggieTales theme song into our repertoire, because I had a request just a month ago from somebody. Somebody came up and said, "Hey, that woman over there was wondering if you guys know the VeggieTales song." And we were on a break, and I actually went over and sat down with her, and I wanted to find out if she knew who we were. And so I just started asking her, what's this VeggieTales thing? Why would you ask for that? And it wasn't me, it was this guy, but he was too embarrassed to mention. I was like, really? Well, I mean, why would you ask for it? Oh, I grew up in a and I saw the tube and I just thought, oh, that's VeggieTales. And I went about 5 minutes before just barely hinting that, do you realize who you're talking to?
Oh my gosh. I bet she
And then
freaked out.
their jaws just dropped, and it was pretty funny, because then we played the song, and they're getting selfies with us, and so I know that we made their day. So
What was the name of the band
it's
again?
funny. Good Bellows.
Can you find them on YouTube?
Fellows, good.
Or you on YouTube?
Yeah, we've got a Facebook and Instagram and YouTube presence, and we've got a website. I've been it's funny, because I've been careful over the first year. It's not the first thing I want to put out there in my professional circles of, I'm a film composer. Oh, and by the way, I wear lederhosen on the weekend. But then people are like, no, that makes sense. I mean, if you're the VeggieTales guy, I can see that. So, and it's been a work in progress. It's just been a fun side thing to do with a couple buddies. So we're not touring, we're not opening for any big acts or anything like that, but it's been fun to just grow it a little bit and have some fun with it, and keep my chops up with all the different instruments and stuff.
That's so cool. I just looked up the website. Website looks amazing. I'm gonna listen to the music. I love polka stuff, obviously all of us do, so I'll make sure I listen to some of that. That is so cool.
All right. I'm just warning you. We actually, our tagline, since Nashville is Music City, our tagline is, we're the worst band in Music City. Worst being spelled WURST with an umlaut over it.
Yeah.
So that way we set the expectation low, and then if we sound good, that's a surprise.
And you make a pun.
And that's always, if you want to tip us, it goes towards music lessons for Eddie, our clarinet player. He needs them. We're just always self-deprecating and making us sound worse than hopefully we are. And sometimes we do sound bad. We actually have this bell on stage. It's kind of like a school bell, and we call it the bell of disappointment. And so if any of us makes a mistake, we ring the bell and we just acknowledge it. So we play up on the humanity of it all, instead
I feel
of
like you need to have a bit of self-deprecating humor to be in a polka band at some point.
What are you saying about polka music?
No, Gord's speaking from experience.
But the funny thing is, we're actually having fun. We do a lot of jazz standards and Dixieland, and we just literally did several of our guys do actually good arranging, and we just did a Lady Gaga medley. That's our newest piece. A Lady Gaga medley played by a polka band.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, so it's those sorts of things that we love to do. We're doing the theme from Mario, but you know how it goes. Mario Kart, we're doing that theme. We're going to add the Cantina band from Star Wars pretty soon. We do we do some Beatles stuff that's just really fun. We do some, You've Got a Friend in Me from Disney, Toy Story, that just, we kill on that. It just sounds great.
I always love
because
that.
it fits that ensemble really well. So anyways, that's enough. Way more about polka bands than you were expecting in this interview.
Well, I'm
Oh,
glad to
I
hear
love
it. I'm glad to hear it. I love it.
Any other questions, big picture questions?
Do you have any current favorite VeggieTales song as of now? Like, has your opinion changed at all?
Yeah, it's like choosing my favorite child of mine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do have a favorite child. No, yeah, no, I don't have a favorite. I think I would say Belly Button and Cheeseburger stand out as just, when you think of a classic. I mean, Hairbrush is a classic, but there's not a lot of production in that. I think Cheeseburger and Belly Button really are the pinnacle of that. Is what is a silly song. It's a spoof on a genre. It's funny at multiple levels. There's a lot of production going in. There's a lot of research that we went into. Cheeseburger is the one that the first that Mike was singing when he pitched it to me. Turns out he was hearing the Spanish soap opera that his wife was listening to and copying that. So I rewrote that. But that was also inspired, if any of your fans, if you have any 60-year-old fans of your channel, that song was inspired by a food or a name of a band. Meatloaf, yes.
Meatloaf,
the background. Yeah.
All the
So that
commentaries.
you are his cheeseburger. I mean, that's classic Meatloaf. So, that was fun to spoof that sort of style. So those would be two that stand out as, those are really well-crafted songs that I think stand the test of time. And, just the silliness of Cheeseburger. Mike, as was writing a love song for Larry. It was going to be about the drive-through girl as he pulls up to take his order and he sees the drive-through girl and he falls in love with her. But he's like, no, that's not weird enough. What if he falls in love with the cheeseburger itself? So that's, so it's a love song to a cheeseburger.
There we go. I love it. That's the commentaries were one of my favorite parts of the VeggieTales DVDs. Those were great.
Yes, those are always fun to do because we go back to all of those and review them, and even those sing-alongs. That autotainment theme song. I mean, even building the music for the compilation. I was researching some of the old Disney. Forgot which show that was that they did, but it's that whole, hey, we're in the 60s and it's the future is here, and and it was just very fun to spoof all of that stuff.
Autotainment's a fun episode. Now, did you?
Oh yeah.
The albums, because Autotainment was like a compilation of the songs from the albums animated. Did you compose the music for the albums as well? I should know this. I'm sure.
There's a lot of. I mean, obviously, all of the compilation albums, Veggies 1, 2, 3, 4, that are songs from all the shows. I did all those. There were a lot of CDs that I wasn't involved in. Chris Davis did a lot of production on those. Who else did some? Scott Davidson, and because I was still working on the videos, and then we'd say, hey, let's do a CD on country songs interpreted by veggie characters, or hits from the 90s or 80s or Christian hits. I'd have some input on those, but we'd farm those out. I was involved in our Christmas CDs, our Easter CD. Some of those were a little more story driven. Some of those have a lot of dialogue because they were saying, hey, we want to be able to make a video out of this one of these days. Let's put a story in here too. So yeah.
That's all around the world. If you remember that one with Archibald and all the different Easter traditions and stuff, I could definitely tell that was you.
In every single place, everywhere, in every boy and girl, and you'll find amazing grace all around the world. All right now.
Yes, yeah. And the Easter song is there, sung by Matthew Ward, who sang the original. That's why
right.
That's on there.
That's what I was thinking when you mentioned it.
And I just loved getting to do that. So that's an example of where I did some of the production, and then some others did some of the production too. So I'll hear things and I go, okay, that's different. It's a different flavor than what you'd hear from me. but it's related.
I got you confused with Chris Davis for the live show. I'm so sorry.
Oh, okay. No, that's I've worked with Chris a bunch, and yeah,
Yeah.
he's done some of those live shows. So I'm not sure what sort of production he's doing these days, but yeah, he's done a lot of variety of stuff in the past. He's been working with Phil Vischer on some of his Jelly Telly stuff. So you know, Chris has been in the loop with that stuff too.
I definitely heard his style on some of like the What's in the Bible DVDs. I could definitely like pinpoint his style out of that.
Okay, yeah, yep. He's bringing in children's choirs and live bands and production. You know, still kind of comes through the big idea of VeggieTales Mike Phil filter too. So there's going to be things that myself or Chris will do because we've been directed by a director to do it. You know.
Yeah, I think that's what makes VeggieTales so unique too. Just so many talented people. And that's why I think it doesn't just have to stay with VeggieTales. If you have the same talented people working on another show, like Dead Sea Squirrels or Wing Feather, you know, then you're going to have another great product.
Yeah, it's been very fun to see. I mean, so many people came in and out, came through Big Idea while I was there. You know, big names from Disney and you know, now names that have gone on to places like Pixar. And it's neat to go, oh yeah, I'll watch credits on a Disney movie or a Pixar movie and pick out a couple and go, yep, they came through Big Idea at one point. And so it's really neat to just have that connection that I wouldn't have had, you know, without that.
Yeah, I think so too. We'll wrap this one up unless Nicholas or Gord had any more questions that I've, you know, hogged and held them back from asking.
No, good. It was really good talking.
I think so too.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing this, and yeah, send me the link, and I want to see who else you've got on here and see if our stories match and that sort of stuff. Yeah.
But we've talked to, if you know Henry Haggard.
Yep.
Yeah, I talked to Henry Haggard, Sean Chiplock, Stephanie Sutherland, Kira Buckland. This has been Kurt Heinecke, not just the VeggieTales guy. This is the man behind the music of Wing Feather Saga, Superbook. Upcoming productions you haven't seen, go to Disney World, see if you can pick them out sometime once they start reusing that music again. Just a very accomplished musician that needs to be known for more than VeggieTales.
God made you special, and he loves you very much.
There we go.
Bye.